Oh, okay.
There are multiple
I need to
islands.
know your name. I need to know your name.
Well, how can I parents?
That's how much we know about Hawaii.
BAIL.
Honolulu was the name, Samuel, like the, I thought never exists, it's like a Hoshes, oh no, it's over there.
Exactly. Want to put the link on YouTube and ready to go.
But it's all for.
Training spell B.
BAIL.
First and only time I spelled
LL.
Interesting.
Why?
So we're up to chapter 20. And since the whole internet is listening to our conversations, we might as well jump right in. So who remembers what we're up to?
That good.
No.
I think we did Yutet last week.
So then the next one.
Now we're up to Chaf, but what's the subject? That's what I'm saying. Do you remember what where the
We're talking
conversation
about a
is?
candle wick and the flame, it's always going up.
The flame always goes up. Yeah, we talked about that. The flame wants to go up, even though it knows that if it lets go of the wick, it'll cease to exist. But nevertheless, that's what it wants.
Soul does not want to leave here because then it can't do its job anymore.
The soul does want to leave here, but it needs to be convinced to stay here because of the job.
Wow.
I thought it was soul comes here against its will and it sticks around.
Right, but the nature of the soul before it gets the taste of, before it gets a good taste of mitzvah, its nature is to cleave to its source. Right?
Yes.
And that was all by way of explaining, in part of the explanation about how the faith that we have is so powerful because of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. The faith that we have as an inheritance from them is so powerful that even if someone who can kind of ignore their Yiddishkeit throughout their lives, God forbid somebody should be faced with the challenge of completely denying their Yiddishkeit, completely denying their relationship with God, being forced to worship idolatry or face the punishment of death. In many cases, Alter Rebbe says, in most cases, the person would, despite their own better judgment, would choose death because they cannot knowingly separate themselves from God.
Mm-hmm.
It's because of this incredible bond that we have, this holy soul, the Nefesh Kedosha, the holy soul that we have as an inheritance from Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. So there were 4 questions that we asked in chapter 18. He said that in chapter 17, he was talking about the love for God. If you can develop through meditation, through contemplation, you can develop a love for Hashem, then it's easy to do all the mitzvahs properly. And that's why Moshe said to the people, this is very easy for you. In your mouths, meaning in your speech, and in your hearts, meaning in your feelings, your emotions, to do the mitzvah. So the Alter Rebbe said there, chapter 17, that it basically means you have to be able to contemplate about the greatness of God enough to get the job done, to be able to get the mitzvah done. That's considered developing the love in your heart for God, and it's easy for everybody to do. It's very practical, it's very realistic. Every single Jewish person can do this. And the question was, how can you say it's very easy if our practical experience is it's not easy? We don't feel that. So he was saying, all you need is enough. What Moshe was talking about in that statement wasn't this great burning love, passionate love for God where you're constantly enthralled. And it's talking about developing enough love in your heart, or even just in your mind, intellectual kind of love, an understanding of God's deservedness, if you will, to be loved. If you can develop enough of that in order to get the job done, then that's what Moshe was talking about. And that's why it says, Beficha uvilvavcha, in your heart and in your mouth and in your heart. In other words, in your speech and in your emotions. La'asoto, in your actions. But it doesn't say vila asoto, and to do it. It says la'asoto, to do it, meaning kind of insinuating that you just have to develop enough love to do the mitzvah. Beficha uvilvavcha la'asoto, in your mouth, in your speech, and in your heart to do it. You don't have to have great, awesome, extreme, flaming, passionate love. You have to have enough love to get the mitzvah done. That was the first answer. Then he says, so that explains how it's close, but how is it very close? Or what if somebody doesn't have enough knowledge of godliness to even contemplate that much? A person just simply doesn't know much about God or godliness. What does he do? What does that person do? How does Moshe say that person can easily have a relationship with Hashem where he loves Hashem enough, or she loves Hashem enough to do the mitzvah? So that was in chapter 18. And chapter 19, where the Alter Rebbe introduced the idea of what is called the Ava Misuteret, the hidden love. We have a hidden love that's an inheritance, which is this concealed love that we have in our souls as an inheritance from Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And because you don't have to develop an awesome love through contemplation, you just have to tap into the natural love that you have hidden somewhere in your soul that everybody can do. And then the Alter Rebbe asked 4 questions about that love, right? He asked, what is the source of that love? What is the purpose, or what is the intent? What is the desired effect of that love, the Ava Misuteret? How is it an inheritance? And how does it include also awe of Hashem? Because you have to have love and fear, right? And he answered those 4 questions. He said that the source of the love is the chokhmah of the soul, chokhmah shebenefesh, which is that part of the soul that has such humility. It's so humble. It's so transparent to God that it's available to receive brand new information, even information that goes contrary to what you already know, right? That's the chokhmah of the soul, is not like Bina, that takes something that you already know and develop it and expand on it. That's Bina, the second level of intellect. But the first step of the intellect is the ability to receive new information. To receive new information, you have to set yourself aside. Bina means my intellect is processing a thought. Chokhmah means my intellect steps aside in order to make room for a new thought, a new idea, right? That ability to set yourself aside to make room for something completely new, that's where faith happens.
Is it goes in like it starts with Chokhmah and then it becomes a Bina and then it becomes that?
In the intellectual process, yes.
Okay.
But as far as emunah, as far as faith goes, it's in Chokhmah.
Okay.
It doesn't go into Bina because it's something you can't understand. That's why it's faith. But the point is that it's the reason you can have faith is because the intellect sets itself aside. What does it mean? Why is it called intellect if it sets itself aside? Why is it me if it's setting itself aside? If I'm saying I'm going to suspend all my opinions and all of my intellect and just receive new information, then why is that called intellect? The point is that it's receiving new information from that which it's knowing. In other words, it's like I can get to know you well and understand you through Bina. I can understand your personality. But first I have to discover you. When I discover that you're there, that you exist, it's like, wow, I didn't even know that you existed. I don't know anything about you. But you stepping into my awareness, into my realm, into my world, you've just put yourself into my sphere, into my space, into my world, into my awareness. In other words, you became information in my head. Not that I process the information. Chokhmah is about you in my mind. Bina is about me understanding you. So Bina is all about me, all about my experience of you. Chokhmah is about you imposing yourself on me. That's what Chokhmah is. That part of the intellect is when you impose. So a concept, which is really what intellect is about, right? It's another person is not really a good example, a good analogy, but an idea. You have a truth. 2 + 2 = 4. Whatever. Come up with something more sophisticated than that.
3 + 3 = 6.
Good, good. Keep going that direction. So, Chachma is the truth making itself known to me. Bina is, okay, I have this new bit of knowledge. What am I going to do with it? Let me process it and understand it and develop it and apply it to other ideas that I know. That's Bina. So, again, Chachma is the bit of knowledge illuminating in my brain. Bina is my brain processing the thought and developing it. That's why, or that explains how faith happens in Chachma. Faith means there is something that is so true that it makes me believe in it. So people say, I choose to believe that. That's not belief at all. That's just, I'm too lazy to think it through. Real belief, according to Torah, real emunah is, this is something that cannot be known, it can't be understood, but it's so powerfully true that it makes you believe it. That's belief, which is why, by the way, incidentally, parenthetically, I can give you an example of something that's not the case. What's not the case is believing that God exists. Not the case. You're not supposed to believe that God exists. You're supposed to know, think about it, figure it out, and understand it.
Right.
You don't
it
have
says
to.
that that edition.
Right.
That edition.
Right. Believing that the Torah will never change. That's belief. Because it has to be the case. But I can't explain it. I can't know the future. I can't tell you how I know that it's not going to change. A better example is this. There's a story in the Talmud about one of the sages. You know, the Talmud is full of arguments, full of debates, and someone has an opinion, and the others argue with him. So, if you argue with me, I justify my opinion. I argue back. There's a particular story where one of the sages, one of the high-level sages, said, this is my opinion on this matter. And the others argued with him, and he said, I don't know. Can't explain it. So they said, so you agree with us now? And he said, nope. I still maintain my opinion. And that's the end of the conversation. And not only that, but if you look in the halachic authorities about what the actual rule is on that law, most of the halachic authorities go with him, with his opinion, even though he couldn't justify his opinion.
That means it's deep and true enough.
So what that means is he was saying, I can explain to you most of my opinions because I understand them. This one, I don't understand it, but I see it. I see the truth of it and I can't deny it. I can't explain it either. In my brain, I see it. My mind sees it and I can't.
Maybe too.
Well, seeing it means you can't talk me out of it. It's that true. It's that real that it's like. In other words, the idea itself, the truth of the idea imposed itself on him so strongly that although he couldn't explain it, he was absolutely certain that that was the law. So that's the idea. So where were we going with all this? Why were we talking about this? We're talking about this because the source of this hidden love that every one of us has is that part of the soul that doesn't need an explanation, which is why somebody who is, you know, like we said, there are many examples of people who believe in something so strongly that they're willing to give their life for that which they believe in. Here, we're talking about somebody who does not believe in it, or at least isn't aware of his or her belief in it, or at least maybe believes it but isn't very interested, is not passionate about it at all, and yet is willing to give their life for it. Yeah. And you say, why? Why are you willing to give your life for it? And the person will say, I can't tell you. I don't know. In fact, I wish I wouldn't. I don't even like the idea that I'm willing to give my life for this, but I can't do otherwise. It's because the chachma of the soul is shining.
Is the chokhmah or is it the dat?
The chachma.
It's an undeniable.
That is once you know it already. Chachma is beyond.
Okay, yeah.
So that's,
Undeniable fundamental truth.
Yeah.
and the soul sees it, and the rest of us just.
So I thought Chokhmah is when we absorb a new idea.
Chokhmah, the experience of Chokhmah is when you receive a new idea. The function of Chokhmah is the ability to completely suspend myself and be available to that new idea. That's why it's called Koach Ma, the ability to say, what? Tell me something new. Give me some new information. I'm completely open. So you tell somebody 2 + 2 = 12. If they're working with their Bina, they say, no, that doesn't work. I know that 2 + 2 is 4. If you tell somebody who's functioning purely on Chokhmah, 2 + 2 = 12, they'll say, really? How? They're fascinated by this new idea that doesn't make any sense. Then you start thinking it through and you say, I don't actually think that's possible. But Chokhmah doesn't do that. Chokhmah says, wow, that's brand new information. I've never heard that before.
So Chokhmah can believe something isn't true.
Not believe.
But
Chokhmah is
but
curious.
receive. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
Chokhmah is curious and it's open to receiving.
Yeah.
Okay. So he was explaining that's how it's close, it's easy, it's realistic, it's practical for every single one of us to do mitzvahs, not just in action, but also with feeling. What's the feeling? The feeling is a love for God. Where am I getting this love for God? I never even met God. I don't know anything about it. The answer is, in your soul, there's a part of you that comes straight from Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, who were so completely, absolutely transparent to Hashem that they merited to bequeath, to give as a gift, as an inheritance to all of their descendants forever, a feeling of love for God, a soul that loves God.
What about Rivka, Rachel, Leah, and Sarah?
Them too. Question is, how do you give as an inheritance a feeling? You can give as an inheritance a thing, right? You can give a house, you can give a bank account. You can even give a character trait, right? If I'm naturally kind, and if I'm intensely kind, my children will most likely have a similar character. But if I have an opinion, my opinion automatically transfers to my children. And not only do they transfer to my children forever and ever, all my descendants for the rest of, how does that happen? That's what his question is in chapter 17. How is it that you inherit a feeling? How do you inherit a love? That's why he asked it, right? How do you inherit a love? So he answered, Yerusha.
Oh, nachon. Right,
Yeah.
right.
So he's asking,
When?
now we're going to 20, but now we're reviewing 17, 18, 19. Before I get there. So he asked, the first question was, Echi Yerusha lanu me'avotenu. He's not just asking, how is it an inheritance? Who is it from? He's asking, how is it an inheritance? Because since when can you inherit a feeling? You can't really inherit an opinion or a feeling. Just because my father likes somebody, I'm going to like them.
No.
Not necessarily.
I mean, maybe
The answer
it comes
is-
from the genes.
Love doesn't.
No.
The kindness or a very loving nature can come in the genes. But to love a particular person or to love a particular thing,
I mean, like,
I
let's say
mean-
my dad loves cows. He can like show me cows.
so you
when I
can,
was
right,
young.
you'll have an interest in it, but it's not necessarily going to make you love it.
Oh, but let's say my mom has a very good friend because they find things in common,
right,
right?
so you
I'm
will-
very similar to my mom.
I
The
understand.
same.
So you'll be introduced to her and you'll be taught to like the person, and then somewhere along the line you'll find out that you actually don't like her at all. I don't know why my mom likes her, why she's friends with her.
Right.
So the answer is, his question is, Echi Yerusha lanu, how is it an inheritance to us? And his answer is, it's not. It's not that we inherit the love, it's that we inherit a soul.
The devotion.
And the soul is so aware of the awesomeness of Hashem that it automatically loves God. So we don't inherit just the love for Hashem. You inherit the neshama kedosha, like he said in chapter 18, and that neshama loves God absolutely without you even being aware of it. And that's why it's hidden, because it's not an experienced regular function of your heart and soul. It's somewhere deep down inside you it's this neshama kedosha that functions automatically. So that's the answer to question number one. That's the how it's an inheritance. Then he asks,
It's interesting because like I grew up, my grandparents were like religious. Like my grandpa was like paitan, like religious. And then my dad was obviously that. So I was not grown like with the love, you know?
You did. Only it's ava misuteret. It's a hidden love. Which is why if somebody told you, tell me that you're not Jewish, you would say, I'll punch you in the nose. Tell me I'm not Jewish. You say, why? You don't care. Well, I don't know why I care so much, but I care. All of a sudden I care.
felt it in October 7th.
What about
And
what about
we all
people who have like?
You know that we haven't even started learning it. This is just a review, right? Okay.
They do So what about somebody who's like an ancestor from the Inquisition?
Yeah.
And it's only Jewish and they're like 80% Catholic.
Right.
Do they have it?
I deal with this all the time.
I know.
If it's a Jewish soul, it has it.
And it's a really,
Don't they even say it about people that like, if somebody that's like like a mass murderer or something crazy, if they're Jewish, deep down inside, they still have that love.
That's exactly what he's saying. Afilu kal shebekalim, even the lowest of the low, the most distant of the distant.
What if they're adopted?
Only it's very, very, very buried. It's either they're Jewish or not. It doesn't matter what the circumstance is. If they're Jewish, then that's what we're talking about. Now, that doesn't mean that someone who isn't Jewish can't do this, but it's not automatic. Okay, there's just a little footnote.
Mhm.
What was the second question?
Wait, so someone who's not Jewish and converting to Judaism can learn the love.
No, if they convert to Judaism, then they get it automatically. They can have this kind of love even without converting, but they have to work on it. They have to develop it. It doesn't happen automatically.
Isn't there an idea that if someone converts, they always had a Jewish soul to begin with?
Yes, but that needs commentary or clarification, because if they had a Jewish soul all along, then why weren't they Jewish? So they had a soul that was going to become Jewish all along, which is why they can't not.
And then when they dip in the mikvah, it's
It
Jewish and they
completes
get the
that
love?
transformation. Yeah.
I remember, I don't know if it was part of the teacher's Bible, but I remember they say that they when in Matan Torah, Mamad al Sinai, there were souls or there were other people from other nations that agreed, but it wasn't all of them, so they were there, but they weren't counted, and that's the.
You know, the
Yeah, I hear
The converts?
So the Gerim was in Matan Torah.
Yeah, that they were there to begin with, but they weren't part of the original group of Bnei Israel.
Yeah, there are a number of very beautiful explanations for where these neshamot come from. Somebody who converts, where does it come from? One of the beautiful explanations I heard, which by the way is very important if you want to really appreciate human life and the human experience completely. One of the Sifrei Kabbalah says, Avraham and Sarah were married for how many years before they had Yitzchak?
Over 60, no?
For a long, long time, right? When a husband and wife are together, something happens, even if a child isn't created.
Yeah.
Each time there was a spark of a neshama. No, even if nothing happened, just there was no effect,
Right,
no
because it was
pregnancy. But there's no such thing as nothing happened. There is a union between husband and wife. Something happens spiritually. All of those spiritual effects are the souls of the Gerim in the future that will become Jewish later. That's another, which is why we call a Ger ben Avraham or Bat Sarah, because they're literally direct. Their soul goes anyway. I think we're just going to review today. We'll do chapter 20 next week if we keep this up. The second question was, what is its, well, first, where does it come from? That we did Chachma. The second question was, how is it an inheritance to us? Which said, we inherit the soul. The third question was, what does it want? And the answer is, it wants to be connected to God even when I don't know why. It wants absolute connection to God, like the flame that jumps to. It knows that it will destroy itself by reconnecting to God, but that's all it wants. It just wants God, even though it means the end of itself. How can something want to end itself just to connect to Hashem? Because it's from Chachma. It doesn't need anything. It has no desire for anything. It just wants Hashem. And then, what was the fourth question? How does it also include fear? So the Alter Rebbe said at the end of the chapter, because fear and love at their core, at the essence of love and fear, they're not two different things. Love means I want to be close to you. Fear means I don't want to disappoint you. At its core, those are they're two sides of the same coin. So when you get to the core of love, to the core of ahava, it naturally includes yirah because they're not really two different things. Embedded in ahava is the fear of disappointing you. So you have all four. That's chapters 18 and 19. Now, chapter 20, he says, if you want to understand the real connection, the real experience of this ava mesuteret, where the person is literally willing to die for Hashem, even though he doesn't feel like he ever met him, which doesn't make any sense. And this whole concept of the absolute connection, even if it means like the flame that wants to jump off the wick of the candle, even though it's going to end its own existence. How do you explain that? So he says, to understand that, you have to understand what it means that Hashem is one. What does it mean to be one with Hashem? Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. What does that mean? What does it mean, Hashem Echad?
Like there's only one God.
Wrong. Exactly.
That
So
means that
no.
I am one with God.
So 1 second. That is the classic translation. There's only one God. Now, the Rebbe is going to tell us that it means so much more than that. That's exactly what we're going to address. Bidyuk. But the amazing thing is, he's going to do it in short. That's what he says. We're going to, very briefly, we're going to talk about how the understanding the oneness of Hashem. And he's going to do 2 chapters to very briefly address. And just to show you how that's really brief, the second section of Tanya, which is many chapters, it's like, this is volume 1, 53 chapters. Then there's volume 2. Volume 2 is all about the oneness of Hashem. So the concept of the oneness of Hashem is infinite. It's huge. And these 2 chapters that we're going to learn starting tonight is just like a little taste of what exactly that means. The real mystical, esoteric, spiritual, Hasidic meaning, definition, explanation of Hashem as one. Okay, that's what we're starting out. And why are we doing this? We're doing this to understand how it's realistic and practical and available to you and me, regular people, to do mitzvahs with love for Hashem. That's why we're talking about this, okay? Perek Chaf, chapter 20. Behine. Muda zo es lakol mitzvahs asaras avodah zara. Ki mitzvahs avodah zara shehem shnei dibros harishonos anochi v'lo yelecha. It should be known that the mitzvah of the prohibition against idolatry, which we just finished saying, even the most uninitiated among us would give their life to avoid worshiping idols. Try to understand this. So you have to understand that the mitzvah of avodah zarah, the prohibition against, or the whole mitzvah, the prohibition, the positive and negative of idolatry, which is made up of the 2 first of the 10 commandments. What are the first 2 of the 10 commandments? Anochi Hashem, I am Hashem, and Lo Yeh Lecha, don't have any other gods. That's all of the positive and all of the negative. Haim, they are Kololus Kol HaTorah Kula. They are the entire Torah. Ki Dibur Anochi Koil Kol Ramach Mitzvah Aseh. The mitzvah, the first one of the 10 commandments is I am Hashem, I am the Lord your God. That includes all of the positive mitzvahs, all 248 positive mitzvahs. V'lo yeh lecha, and the second commandment in the 10 commandments, don't have any other gods. Koil Kol Shasam Mitzvahs. Like I said, that includes all of the negative mitzvahs, all of the prohibitions. Which makes sense, right? All of the positive mitzvahs are included in, let me be your God. And all of the negative mitzvahs are included in, don't have any other gods. Mm-hmm. Do what I like, don't do what I don't like. That's basically the whole Torah. And that's why, levad mipi agvura, at the giving of the Torah, Kamei Marazal, the sages tell us, God spoke the first 2 of the 10 commandments, and then the Jewish people said to Moshe, that's enough. We can't handle it. Let God tell you the rest of it, and then you tell us what he said, because we can't take it. And Moshe was very disappointed with the Jewish people. You kidding? God is talking to you. Stand still and listen. But he goes to Hashem and he says, they don't want to hear from you. They want to hear from me. And God says, yeah, that's fine. That works. Why is that fine? So there's a fascinating little thing. What is the gematria of the word Torah? You know how gematria works?
611.
611. What kind of number is that?
6 plus 1 plus 1.
It's 613 minus the 2.
Torah, tziva,
Is infinity.
Torah, tziva, lanu, Moshe. Moshe commanded us Torah,
Hey, nice.
611. The other two, God gave those to us directly. Torah, tziva, lanu, Moshe. So, 611 we got from God, but the two mitzvahs, that was enough for God to tell us directly because those two first mitzvahs include everything. Once you heard those two, that really includes everything. He's addressing, by the way, I forgot to mention, he's addressing another very important question here, which is a question that somebody asked last week. I don't remember who. If it was a good question, it was probably you, right? The question is, if the person is willing to give up their life for Hashem and not bow to idols, then why isn't he willing to do the other mitzvahs? What's the problem?
About the stick.
That was an asked question. So if you're willing to literally give up your life, you're going to die for God, not bow to an idol. What's he asking you to do? He's asking you to not eat pork. What's the big deal? You're willing to die, be burned alive at the stake, God forbid, to not deny the truth of Hashem, but you won't stop eating pork?
It's like the show.
It's not like all of them, but what about, it's almost impossible not to do any mitzvahs.
Right, but the question is your willingness, the relationship, right? So that's also part of what this chapter is going to address, is that question of what sense does it make that you're willing to give your life for not worshiping idols, but you're not willing to do the rest of the mitzvahs. And if that's the case, the bigger question is back to the original question. How can you say it's very easy? You just explained in chapter 18 and 19, you explained to me how it's possible that even if I'm not completely excited and passionate about God, nevertheless, if somebody threatens my life and says either bow to the cross or I'm going to kill you, I'm willing to die instead of worshiping idolatry, right? Okay, that explains how that one mitzvah is close to me. What about all the other mitzvahs? I don't want to give up my ham sandwich. And you didn't explain to me how that's going to happen, because so far all you explained to me is when something so central and so critical wakes up that part of my soul that cannot be separate from God, then it's easy for me. What about if it's a simple mitzvah that doesn't wake up that part of me, and therefore I end up doing what Hashem doesn't want me to do? How is that easy for me? He's going to address that here also. Okay, so this is actually a very important kind of a central theme. So why are those two mitzvahs the beginning? I'm sorry, the whole Torah. They include the entire Torah. Like I said, they are the summary of the entire Torah, which is Torah is not just a religious practice. Torah isn't a religious doctrine. Torah is a relationship with God. So if you have a relationship with God, you do what he wants you to do, and you don't do what he doesn't want you to do. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. Now you want to know the details of what does he want you to do, and what does he not want you to do. But what are you working on? You're working on doing 613 mitzvahs, or are you working on a relationship with God? You're working on a relationship. You're not working on a shopping list of. So in that sense, the first two mitzvahs include the entire Torah. Okay? To understand this idea well, 8:40 already, 20. First, we have to preface in short, right? This is all going to be very, very brief. The meaning and the essence of the oneness of Hashem, shenikra yochid umiyuchad. God is called singular, oneness. Notice that when we say Shema, we don't say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Yachid. We say Hashem Echad. So this means as follows. We all believe Shehu Levado, that God is alone. God is absolutely alone. He's the only one. Just like he was before he created the universe. He was absolutely alone. It was just him. Even after he created the universe, it still remains just him. We say in the davening, you are he who was before the world was created, and you are he after the world was created. Nothing in Hashem, nothing changes. So the world, that changed dramatically. But as far as Hashem is concerned, nothing changed. He is still just him and nothing else. Pirush hu mamash. That means literally he. He, the same he who was before the world was created, absolutely the only existence. He is absolutely the only existence after he created the world also, which obviously requires a lot of explanation. Belishum shini, without any change whatsoever, as it says, Ani havai l'shanisi, I am God, I have not changed. Ki olam hazeh v'chein kol ha'olam esal yodim einam poilim shum shini v'achdusi yisbarach v'hibaram me'ayin leyesh. Because all of the worlds that God created, the heavenly realms, all of the everything, make absolutely no change in God whatsoever. Because just as he was absolutely alone and the only before the worlds were created, the same is true after he created them. He is still absolutely one and alone. Mishum, because compared to him or in his presence, as far as he's concerned, none of it actually has any relevance. You say, look how awesome, God created such an awesome world. Is it awesome to God? When he looks at the world, is it awesome?
Yeah.
It's nothing.
Why?
No.
He says there's a, I forgot the exact words, but that God looks at the world.
He said it's good.
It's good.
Right. He didn't say it's meaningful.
No,
He didn't say it changes.
nothing good or bad.
No, but it's happy with
It's
what
not
he
impressive.
created.
But it's not impressive to him.
Because it's him.
Yeah. Like when you say hello, you speak one. Well, we're going to get to it. Let's keep reading. Everything compared to him, I'll tell you how. You can understand it this way. How far is the distance between 1 and 1,000,000?
Million.
There's no
Zero.
correct answer.
It's 1,000,000. It's very far. What's the distance between 2 and 1,000,000?
There's no correct answer.
There is. It's very far.
An infinite subdivision.
Depends.
1 second.
Wait, it's 900 million minus 2.
Right. The difference between 1 and 2 compared to 1,000,000 is puny.
Is one.
Relative speaking. I'm
Yeah.
talking about relatively. The relationship between 1 and 1,000,000 and the relationship between 2 and 1,000,000, it's not really significant.
Right.
But there is a difference. There is a difference. 2 is 1 closer to 1,000,000 than 1, right?
Mhm.
What's the distance between 1 and infinite?
Infinite.
What's the difference between 2 and infinite?
Infinite.
The same distance, right? There is no difference between 1 and 2 compared to infinite.
Yeah.
That's the meaning of kilo chashiv mamash. The world is nothing because it's finite. It has no relevance compared to the infinite. God is infinite, so anything that's finite is going to be irrelevant. It's going to be kilo mamash chashivin. It's as if it's nothing. It's the same as 0. 1 and 0 are the same to the infinite.
So in one hand we say God is here watching over us, proud of us. We just talked about Kadiyat Min Israel and all that. But at the other hand, it's like, whatever.
We'll get to it.
I can make a million.
I'll bet you the Alter Rebbe thought of that question. Of course, the relationship is important to him, but the world, we'll get to
Okay.
it. Because the creation, the bringing into existence of all of the worlds, all of creation, from nothing into something, v'chayusam, and that which keeps them going, v'kiyumam, and their continued existence, everything that keeps it going, that it shouldn't go back to being nothing like it used to be. It's just God speaking. So how impressed is he with his own speech? It's just him. Just like by a person, in the soul of a person. Where does speech come from in a human being? Speech comes from the soul. So when a person speaks one statement, you say one word. That one statement is like nothing. When you compare it to my soul and the capacity that my soul has for speaking, one statement is nothing. It's not impressive. It's literally unimpressive completely, utterly unimpressive. Because even though it's a of the three garments, it's a middle level garment. Nevertheless, one word spoken from it is because the soul has the ability to speak infinite, and infinite compared to finite, there's no comparison.
What does it mean the soul is able to
The
speak?
soul is koach hadibur. How much can the soul speak? However much time,
The
however.
mouth speak. When you say like
The
words,
mouth can only speak a certain amount.
right?
Then it runs out. The soul is the koach hadibur, the ability to speak. It has no limit. As long as it has a body to speak with, it can speak. So the soul is koach hadibur, is the what's it called, the capacity, the ability, the talent to speak, and it's infinite. It can talk infinitely. So when a person speaks a word, a sentence, you say one sentence, that's a single sentence, a single finite sentence. The single finite sentence compared to the infinite ability of the soul to speak is irrelevant. It's like it doesn't even compute. It's not calculable. It's not a calculable, relevant quantity.
But, okay, so if God is created the world.
Let's finish what he's saying. Let's finish what he's saying and see if the answer is your question. Certainly with regards to the more inner, the higher garment of the soul, which is thought, which is thought, because that's where the words come from, and the thought is what powers the speech. And certainly when it comes to the essence of the soul, which is what? If the garments of the soul are thought, speech, and deed, what's the essence of the soul? If you were here through chapters 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the sechel and midot, the intellect and the feelings, the emotions. Chochma, bina, da'at, wisdom, understanding, knowledge, kindness, severity, chesed, gvur, tiferet, all that. Those are the essence. So certainly compared to those, the essence of the soul, shemehen nimshchu oises hamachshava zoi hamislab hameluboshes b'dibur zeh kishemedaber. It's the feelings and the intellect in the soul, which is the essence of the soul, compared to the garments, that fuel the garments of the soul and give speech its function. So certainly compared to the essence of the soul, one spoken statement is irrelevant, right? These different levels, if you just want to get an idea of what he's doing here by building this argument, he says the soul's ability to speak, or the higher level of this garment, which is the soul's thoughts, which is where speech comes from, or the essence of the soul, which is where both the speech and the thought come from. And then he says, because that's this concept of letters. The letters of thought and letters of speech come from the soul. What he's saying is that speech is a physical thing compared to the soul. Compared to a table, speech is more of a spiritual thing. But compared to real spiritual, speech is physical. Why is it physical? Because it has a form. It's constructed of letters. It's made up of letters. When you speak, you have to have a lineup of a bunch of different sounds that come out of your mouth. Those are the letters, that the building blocks that make up the word. That's true in your thought also, right? You ever think about what language you think in? How can you think in a language? What language do you feel in?
The language in Hebrew.
But what language do you feel in? Yeah, you think in Hebrew. What language do you feel in?
But even the inner speech.
The answer is your feelings are before the letters of speech and thought.
Yeah,
So,
and I can explain my feelings based on the words I have.
right. So you can explain it, you can think it.
Yeah, but sometimes you cannot explain your feeling.
And there is a feeling that I will try to find the word.
You can think,
Okay, I got it.
you can think your feeling, you can think about your love, and you can speak your love with letters, but the love itself doesn't have a language, doesn't have letters. It's not made up of building blocks that construct the construct of your love. It's just a natural soul feeling, right?
To describe what is, words are to describe.
Right,
Yeah, so.
right. In other words, words aren't really essential.
Experience comes.
No, in other words, the words are not really essential to the soul. It's what's outside of the soul. But God said, "Let there be light." When God said, "Let there be light," was he expressing some deep internal feeling, or was he being productive? He was causing something to happen.
Yeah.
Which is why speech is external, because it's how we relate to that which is outside of us.
Yeah.
That's why it's called a garment. Because thought is also this concept of letters, construct, building blocks, just like speech. Only they're more spiritual and more refined. But the 10 attributes of Chachma, Bina, Das, Chesed, Gevurah, etc., that's the source of thought, and they don't have this business with letters and construct because they're more spiritual. Before they come into the garment of thought. So you'd think that with the essence of the soul, the intellect and the emotions of the soul, before it's developed into particular thoughts or particular words, just the core feeling itself, there the spoken word might have there it has even less relevance. A spoken sentence is nothing. So compared to when you compare God to the world he created, or when you compare the world that God created from his Chachma, what relevance does the world have to his Chachma? You see where he's going with this?
Yeah.
Lamashal,
Like his speech, what
right.
you say.
Yeah, exactly, because he created the world with speech.
Yeah.
So he made a statement, he or. So to his essence, how relevant, how impressive is that statement or the effect of that statement?
So you think he can make better than this?
No. It's that whatever he makes doesn't impress him. It doesn't change him. Has no impact on
I
him.
would say will not impress me. But what if I speak holy words?
No, there are those moments where I'll say something and I'm like, I'm so clever.
So 1 second, we're not talking about,
No, fully.
we're not talking about the concept. We're talking about the word, the spoken, the fact that you just said words. Are you impressed with the fact that you just said words? Not the concept.
No,
The idea
parents
is
were when I was young, but
exactly.
not anymore.
So you say it was like easy between them?
Then they ask if you shut up.
It was like
It took nothing.
like saying hello.
Yeah.
how are you?
Even less. He or.
Even
Poof.
less than
By
that.
he or.
Hmm.
By the way, there's a comedian who says,
So how come it's so marvelous?
1 second, this comedian says, my mother got all excited when my baby said airplane. Oh, airplane, airplane. My mom said, hey, you hear that? He said airplane. I said, Mom, Uncle Fred says that all the time, and you just called him a drunk. What were you saying?
So God can make things, and it doesn't really impress him. Why didn't he make something that impresses himself?
Good question. The answer is he can't.
He liked to play.
Nothing will impress him because he is infinite. And if anything, unless he makes something else infinite, but that's impossible because you can only have one infinite. Everything,
He did his best.
everything he gets points for effort. No, you can't have two infinites. Infinite means it has no end. If you have two infinites, means that the first one had to end somewhere to make room for the second one. You can't have two infinites.
What do you mean by infinite is infinite? So you have infinite infinities.
You can't have more than one infinite. Infinite is all inclusive by definition.
Have more than one infinite, but he is infinite in himself, beyond.
And that's why everything that is him.
I mean,
That's what
infinite is not something to measure.
Right? We're
So-
getting it. Let's try to finish this and see if
But these are
90% of the questions that we ask are answered in the text. We just have to get there.
Enough questions.
We never get there.
No more questions.
Oh, Bobby.
And if you believe that, I got some great swampland in Florida, I can tell you. Lemashal, for example. You have the place where we're up to? Lemashal, for example. When a person suddenly feels a love or a desire for something. But before the person brings that feeling into the mind to process it, right? To think about the thought, the feeling. It doesn't yet have any structure. It doesn't yet have any form. It doesn't have letters. It's just a pure, simple, undefined love without any structure. Just, I want that. And certainly before this desire showed up in my heart for this thing, it was just in potential in my soul essence. I knew about the thing. I was aware of the thing. Is a chachma, like for example, to the appreciation for studying some great piece of wisdom, or some kind of a sweet food that you want to eat, whatever kind of pleasure it is. You're aware of the pleasure, but
Whoa.
once it does come into the intellect and does come into the intellect and the awareness, the knowledge, and then the mind pushes it back to the heart. Then the heart pushes it back to the mind. To figure out how to get what I want practically. That's when the letters, the structure of the idea start to form. So I have this sudden awareness of this delicious food, but it's not a structured thought yet. So my desire, well, first the idea of the awareness of good food is what makes me want it. So the desire starts in my head as information, and then it pushes the information down into my emotions, so that my emotions start to desire that thing. And then the heart says, we've got to figure out how to get that thing. So it pushes the subject back up to the head and says, figure out how to get it. When does the structure of the thought take place? When do the letters, building blocks of a thought start? Starts in the mind, goes down to the heart, goes back to the mind. Where does the letters start? He's saying the letters, the structured thought, begin in step 3. Mind pushes it down to the heart. Heart pushes it back up to the mind. That's where.
And you gotta get those donuts.
Right. Until then, there's no structure. You know what ADHD stands for?
You said
Hot
once and I
donuts, hot donuts.
Attention deficit. Hey, donuts. That's where the letters of thought begin. Right?
Depends how developed you are.
This is ideal. When in a healthy, functioning soul.
Every functional soul will not eat the donut.
Touche. Matzah. Yeah. That means the language of whatever, the letters of whatever language that you happen to be speaking, who speak whatever the language that, whatever the matters of the. So it doesn't matter what it is you're saying. It doesn't matter what language you're speaking. Once it comes to speech or active thought, there is structure. It doesn't matter what language. In fact, the language is the structure. It's by definition letters that make up certain words. But before you start to speak or before you start to think, it's just a thought. The thought is unstructured. And so compared to a spoken word, compared to the soul itself, where words don't even have structure, a sentence is like so primitive and so unimpressive, so low level, so.
Yeah. So where does the thought come from?
Donuts.
Depends what you mean by thought. Do you mean
No,
idea
I'm
or
saying
do you mean the
step
process
one.
of thinking?
Step one is you have the thought, you want the donut.
No, step one is the awareness of a delicious food. Not
So
thinking
where does
yet.
that come
From
And
the,
yeah, and then like if it's food, so maybe it's even from my stomach, it's hunger.
not from your stomach.
I mean,
Things from
if you
outside the
talk
world.
to a scientist
So
or a doctor,
It's-
they will say like.
It starts in the mind. Everything starts in the intellect. In a healthy,
Okay, but
in a
what
healthy
does it come
function
to the intellect.
from the thing itself.
why would that?
The fact introduces itself to the
Let's
intellect.
say I'm like, going on my day, I'm like, I want to call SD. Where did that come from?
I don't know, you should see somebody about that.
You walk down the street, you go.
No, but let's say it.
So he talks about that also in Tanya, about thoughts that pop up into your head out of nowhere. But that's not what we're discussing. What we're talking about is the process of developing a thought. Everything starts in the mind, which means awareness. First, you have to become aware of something. Before you can want something, you have to become aware of it, right?
There's only
So-
So then you see it with your eyes, you smell it with your nose, you taste it.
And
with
all
your-
of those senses send the information to the brain,
Okay. yeah.
right? The brain says, "Oh, that's good." Now, what do you do with that? So the brain says, "That's good." Heart, what do you think? And the heart says, "Yeah, I want that." Now what?
Goes back
The heart
to-
You
says,
get it, but-
"You're the brain. Figure out how to get it." Right? So starts there, comes down, goes back up.
Elevator of intention.
The what's it called? The pinball machine, bouncing the. But that's how a thought works, and that's how a thought gets developed into. I'm sorry. That's how a desire is developed. You become aware of something. There's this great idea. I want to learn more about that. There is this great idea. I want to learn more about that. Let me figure out how to do it.
Is there something you
So-
desire that?
No, you have to first become aware of it to desire it.
What about that very deep soul piece where it is, you want it, you have that part of your soul that wants to go back to God.
That
You're
it's
not
a,
necessarily aware of.
it's aware of God.
So that's
It's
something
aware. Yeah, so it is aware. That's why it wants. So the point is,
But you might not be. That's a part of it.
part of you is aware.
I
Not
think
consciously,
that's
you're
part of
subconscious.
our
You never heard of a
awareness.
subconscious? What are you making faces? You never heard of a subconscious?
Sun.
Huh?
Part of our awareness comes from particles of the sun.
I don't know what that means. It's above my pay grade.
Yeah.
But how do you have to become aware of the particle? So- Yeah, but to perceiving means becoming aware of.
Okay.
Okay, so the point is that there is such thing as or the example that he's using is when you say something, you speak a sentence, not all of you is very impressed with what you just said. Not the concept, but the fact that you just spoke a sentence. There's part of you that doesn't even care for structured thoughts and structured speech. There's a part of you where feeling And awareness is so central that it doesn't need a form. So you spoke a sentence, hooray, you spoke a sentence, doesn't matter to me.
Sometimes it even knows the meaning.
So to say that the world, when God looks at the world, he says, oh, wow, look what I did. Not the case. God looks at the world, looks at all of creation, the entire everything that he created. He looks at that like we look at when we say hello. It's that impressive to him, or that unimpressive to him. Why? One second. Why? Because it is him. All of the world and all of creation and all of everything that exists is existence is him.
So
Even
he
its
appreciates it, he likes it, he
Behind.
watched it, all that, but it doesn't get impressed. It's like, wow, how could it be that?
Now,
Because
what's
he didn't think.
right? What is it? Just because God speaks it, so why can't it become something other than him?
Just because God speaks it, why can?
We're saying that it's so one with him, and it doesn't change him at all because it's not impressive to him. It doesn't take up any kind of space. It has no relevance before him. So then why is that part of him? Maybe it's not part of him anymore and it's irrelevant and he dismisses it. He lets the world go like so many of the great philosophers believed.
Because it's infinity.
The answer is because so there's this beautiful analogy that's brought in Hakira, in Jewish philosophy, of if you see a bird fly by the window, you say, oh, a bird is flying, right? If you see a baseball fly by your window, you say, oh, somebody threw a baseball. Why don't you say, oh, a baseball is flying?
Because it's gotta be.
The answer is because baseballs don't fly. Baseballs are thrown, right? How many times do you have to throw a baseball before it learns to fly by itself?
Never.
Never.
Yeah.
Why?
Because they're never gonna work.
Maybe we didn't throw it enough times.
Just keep trying.
You're one throw away.
Right. Because a baseball has no connection to flight. It's not.
It doesn't have wings.
There's no function.
So nothing.
It has no
So I
soul.
don't think there is a solution.
So nothingness
No people.
becoming something
Go zero days.
is as impossible as a baseball learning to fly.
Why?
Nothingness cannot become something. It doesn't know how to become something. It can't become something.
One.
Nothingness doesn't have in it the properties for becoming a something.
But today you can
No.
identify with something else.
1 second. If you have nothingness, it doesn't have the material, it doesn't have the substance to become something. It is nothing.
God is infinite.
Just like a ball cannot fly, it doesn't have the ability to fly, and nothing is going to change that.
Unless you.
1 second. 1 second.
What?
I give up. Go ahead.
We're nothingness, and he's everything. And he knows all the potential.
Yeah.
And that's why nothing impresses him.
Yeah.
And that's why what impresses him is our ability to fight the desire. Because that's the only thing that we can do that he does not have control
So you like reading the end of the book first.
of.
Yeah, that's the punchline, is that what does impress God is our choices,
Right.
nothing else.
Why is it impressive to him?
Because
Why? It's a fight from his mouth.
Because he wants a relationship.
he doesn't.
Okay.
It's the only thing, but.
With all of us?
impresses him because it's the only thing.
That's-
he doesn't have
that's-
control on,
Right.
Right?
By his own choice. By his own choice.
Because that's why. It's won't impressive.
Se lo bloqueó mi amor.
What's up? That's good.
Yeah. We're saying,
You seem very patient.
thanks for letting us play a little bit.
Oh, sure. you're being-
So if God creates something from nothing, if you take some clay and you shape it into a pot and you walk away, what happens? You have a pot. If you throw a ball and then the energy that you put into the ball ends, what happens?
falls.
It falls. It doesn't keep flying, right? It doesn't learn to fly. When God creates the world, if he walks away, what happens?
Yes.
Falls.
But
It doesn't,
maybe.
it doesn't die. It stops being.
Mhm.
It's not like it'll fall to the ground and dead, drop dead. It will not exist. It will not exist even in memory. It's like
But maybe he puts the code
he
to
doesn't.
run it.
He can't. That's what I'm
It's
saying.
not a computer.
What I'm saying is that that's
He's
not
the
possible.
manufacturer.
What I'm saying is that that's not possible. Just like it's impossible to finish a sentence. It's impossible for. What I'm saying is it's impossible because when you create something out of nothing, you have to keep it going. Otherwise, it won't because it doesn't know how by itself. Somethingness, existence, doesn't know how to exist out of nothingness. In other words, if you don't continuously push it, it won't be.
Unless you make an automation that makes it run.
That's in the next update.
It's a machine learning.
No, but let's say
That's when-
I want to
that's
get
when-
retired at some point.
That's only possible when you're creating something from something. You know, the joke about, there's a joke about the scientist that says to God, we don't need you anymore because now we know we learned how to make human life
Yes.
out of the dust of the earth. So God says, really, show me. So the scientist scoops up a big handful of dust and God says, wait a second. Go get your own dust. Don't take my dust. You get your dust. It's funny, but it's so true because that's the difference. The difference is we know how to create all kinds of things out of other things.
Things,
Right.
There's no such experience in human consciousness of creating something from absolute nothingness because by definition, I'm already a something. I can only think about something. I can't think about nothingness.
Even plastic.
So
So it was Tovavo. Then I was
if God is infinite, you had enough. If God is infinite and everything, how could nothingness exist?
Yeah, there you go.
Because
Nothing.
nothing is part of the infinite, honey. It's like zero.
That sounds good. I'll go with that one.
I'm not going with that.
I'll go with it. Oh, that's good. Nothingness meaning non-existence. There's only one existence. Can there be another existence? The answer is no. All other existence derives from that one existence,
Mhm.
and that one existence brings it into existence constantly with that one existence's energy. So everything is the energy of that one existence.
We don't have parallel universes.
No. And if we do, they're all his energy. So in other words, everything that is, by definition, is him. Now, what I was trying to get to is, I'm glad I finally got here before 9:00, is that all of this that I just said about this absolute oneness because it can't exist without him, and this whole concept of the flying ball and the whatever, this is what is referred to in Kabbalah as Yehuda Tata'ah. There's Yehuda, which is the oneness of God, Achdut Hashem, the oneness of God. Kabbalah talks about Yehuda Ila'ah and Yehuda Tata'ah, the higher level of oneness of God and the lower level of oneness of God. What I just described to you is a slight, minor attempt to describe the lower level of oneness of God. There's a whole nother level called Yehuda Ila'ah that we're not even going to get to.
Yes.
It's way
That's
beyond
like holding my horses about asking that.
about Yehuda Ila'ah. So he hinted to it in a number of places in this chapter, but like he said at the beginning, I'm going to do this very short, right? He said, Biktsara, I'm going to do this brief, so he didn't get into it, but he kind of alluded to it a number of times. I'll give you one example, just to give you an example of where he hinted to it, just to like, in case you're paying attention, I just mentioned it. He says towards the beginning, just like he was absolutely one. Koidem hi baram. Translate that. Kodem hi baram.
Before they were, it's not created, created them at slow. There's no words for Bria.
we can say created, but before they were created, right? Just like he was absolutely one before he baram, they were created. The same is true. Same is true. He is absolutely one even after he created them. Hold on. We're not getting into the concept. I'm just pointing out that he changed words there in the middle of a sentence. To tell you, I'm talking about two different levels. There is he baram and shebaram. They were created almost like automatically, and he created them hands-on. Because in the oneness of God, there are two different, there's Hashem, the tetragrammaton, Yud Kei Vav Kei, and there's Elokim, which is present in creation. If you look in the verses in Torah, there's a verse that uses the word he baram, and that is in a sentence, a verse in the Torah that has Hashem's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, and Bira'am, Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim v'et haaretz.
So there's two aspects.
In other words, we're not even getting into that. He kind of gave a little nod, a wink, wink to those people who understand the difference between those two different levels, but this is going to be short. We're doing this briefly. So I'm just giving you a little insight into this chapter, how truly, although it's going to be this chapter and the next chapter, and it's all very brief about understanding the oneness of God, how we truly understand the oneness of Hashem, there really is a whole sea of more information about it. We just finished the whole chapter, but we didn't do the second chapter.
Nothing about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
We finished the entire chapter, including the brief.